All the participants, a very good morning and good evening. Welcome to today's session. We're going to start with DXC. What is DXC and what is the importance of DXC? So when do we have to implement DXC? So DXC can be implemented in a sidecar scenario. We can implement DXC in a sidecar. So DXC can only work when you have a BW system. Only when you have NetWeaver BW system, DXC can function. Otherwise, DXC cannot function. For implementation of DXC, we require SAP BW system. BW stands for Business Warehouse. So what is the difference between OLTP and OLAP system? So OLTP systems are optimized for writing of data, and OLAP systems are optimized for reads of data. So you can read using an OLAP and you can write using transaction processing system. One example of transaction processing system is an ECC system. An OLAP system example is BW, Business Warehouse. So whatever the operational data that we generate OLTP stands for online transaction processing and OLAP stands for online analytical processing. So here you have transaction processing and here you have analytical processing. So these systems are optimized for writes and these systems are optimized for reads. You write data into these systems, you copy this, you make a copy and move this copy to another system, which is nothing but BW. So how many customers do we have in BW? And how many customers in total we have in SAP? In SAP, there are more than 350,000 customers. In BW, you have more than 14,000 plus customers. So in 3 lakh plus customers that we have in SAP, about 14,000 plus customers are there in BW. So for the customers who have this 14,000 customers who have BW, for them DXC is relevant. So DXC is relevant for customers who already have BW. So how many customers? 14,000 customers plus have BW system. So when you already have ECC and BW in your landscape, now we want to go for a new solution called SAP HANA. We want to go for a new solution called HANA solution. So you build HANA solution. So once you build HANA solution, we call this as native HANA. This is BW, and this is ECC. Now what is my requirement? My requirement is ECC and BW systems. So this is an ECC system. So here you have ECC, and this is BW. In order to transfer data from ECC to BW, both the systems can communicate to each other using an RFC connection. You use a connection called RFC. RFC stands for remote function call. Both the systems can communicate to each other using an RFC. ECC and BW communicate using RFC. Why RFC? Because ECC is based on ABAP. ECC is an ABAP based system, and even BW is an ABAP based system. So DXC is for BW, but SLT is altogether a different use case. So what is the difference between SLT, data services, and DXC? SLT can communicate to SAP, non-SAP in real time. Data services for batch processing, rich in transformation of data. But DXC is a solution that can only work when you have BW solution. If you don't have BW, then DXC doesn't work. SLT can communicate to SAP, non-SAP, it is real time. Data services communicate to SLT, non-SAP, it is batch, rich in transforming data. DXC, direct extractor connection. It is known as direct extractor connection. Direct extractor connection can only function when you have BW in our landscape. Now, so let me complete this. Let me first complete this. Let me try to complete my explanation. So once you communicate ECC ABAP to BW ABAP, both can communicate using RFC. BW is a system that can be outside ECC, or it can be also inside ECC system. BW can be outside ECC, or it is inside ECC. If it is inside ECC, it is known as embedded BW. If it is inside ECC, it is known as embedded BW. If BW is outside or BW is inside, functionality wise it works same, but just that we are sharing the hardware. The hardware is being shared by ECC and BW. Basically both are same. Outside the ECC system or inside ECC system, both work same. Okay, so what is my requirement? My requirement is we can connect to SAP HANA. The connection to HANA is a HTTP connection. It uses HTTP connection. So using a HTTP connection, I can connect to SAP HANA and transfer data to SAP HANA. I can transfer this data to SAP HANA. So basically ECC and BW using RFC, and communication to SAP HANA is done using HTTP. So what is the method, what is the connection type that DXC uses? HTTP. What is the connection between ECC and BW? RFC, remote function call. So now we know what connections have been used and how the data transfers to SAP HANA using HTTP. Okay, now let me give you some fundamentals. So until now I was just trying to explain how how the systems are connected to each other. Now, DXC is known as direct extractor. It's called as direct extractor connection. What is X? X stands for extractors. So now this is ECC system. This is an ECC. So inside ECC, what do you have? BW. As an embedded BW, you have BW inside ECC, which is known as embedded BW. Now, what is the target HANA system? How ECC and HANA are connected to each other? Using HTTP connection, using HTTP protocol. So what do we have inside ECC? Inside ECC, we have data source. What is a data source? A data source is an extractor. Data sources are nothing but extractors. What is an extractor? Extractors are programs that are used to extract data from source system. They extract data from source and place them in target. They extract data from source and then they place data in the target system. So source and target communicate using HTTP connection. So these data sources that you create on the ECC, now this is step number 1. What is step number 1? Create a data source. Step number 2. Replicate data sources to BW. Step number 3. Activate data sources. Where? In BW. So activate data sources in BW. Step number 4. Once the activation is done, once the data sources are activated, an in-memory DSO is created in SAP HANA. In-memory DSO is created in SAP HANA. In-memory DSO is created in SAP HANA. What is in-memory DSO? In-memory data store object. Now, in-memory data store object consists of, this object consists of 5 tables. 00, 40, 70, 80, and AO. So in-memory DSO consists of several tables like 00, 40, 70, 80, and AO. All these tables together, it is known as in-memory DSO. In-memory DSO consists of all these tables together. What is 00 table? So when this in-memory DSO generates, when you activate data source. 00 table is nothing but active data table. It's known as active data table. 40 table is known as activation queue table. A DSO is different. Here it is called as data. In BODS you have data store. Data store is nothing but a connection. But here it is known as data store object. A data store is different and a data store object is different. So data store is nothing but a connection. But here we use data store objects. Here it is known as data in-memory data store object. So 40 table is known as activation queue table. It is for activation queue table. So you'll get a lot of new terminology, not to confuse today. Yes, you'll get more clear by tomorrow. Activation queue table. 70, 80 are called control tables. So once the complete DXC is complete, then you'll get full idea of what DXC is. So 00 is active data table, 40 is activation queue table, and 70, 80 are called as control tables. Control tables hold the statistical information. They hold the statistics information of DXC. So step number 1 is to create data source. Step number 2 is to replicate data sources to BW. Step number 3 is to activate data sources in BW. Once you activate data source in BW, an in-memory DSO is generated in SAP HANA. Once the in-memory DSO is generated, tables like 00, 40, 70, 80 are created. A 00 is called activated table, activation queue table is 40. 70, 80 are called as control tables. Now you got the structure created. A table is nothing but it's a container, but there is no content. A table is a container and it has no content yet. Then where is this content available? Content is available on the ECC system. Where on ECC? Now these data sources are pointing to tables. On the ECC system, these data sources are pointing to tables. Inside these tables you have data. Inside these tables you have data here. Now how do you get this data that is there inside these tables? From table to data source. From data source via this connection to SAP HANA to an in-memory DSO, and from in-memory DSO consisting of 5 tables. So first it goes to 40 table and finally comes to 00 table. So 00 table is only a table, but there is no content. 00 table table, there's no data inside this table. Only the container is there. But how will this content transfer to these containers? Now content from source, content from ECC will be transferred to SAP HANA when you create an object called info package. What is info package? Info package is an object which contains packets of information. It is used to transfer packets of information. From where? From ECC to SAP HANA. So info package is an object that is responsible to transfer data from ECC to SAP HANA. So info packages are responsible to transfer data from BW. So once you execute this info package, nothing but the job. No, this is nothing but a job. So once you initiate this job, BW goes to data source. So here you have data. This data is picked via HTTP connection to HANA. to an in-memory DSO, 240 to 00. So how will data come to 00? When you execute an info package. So info package is like a job that helps to transfer data from HTTP by using the HTTP connection to a 00 table, which is called as active data table. Now on top of this table, on top of these tables, I create information models. We create information models. Okay, so let us do this exercise. So I'll log into, let's click on Start All Programs, click on SAP Frontend, and click on SAP Logon. So once we click on SAP Logon, so let us log into double click on ECC server, provide the username as best, and provide the password W capital welcome 123. So provide the username best, password W capital welcome 123, and click enter. So once you click enter, enter the username, enter the T code S11. Enter the T code S11, click enter. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create one custom table. So let us take some standard table. Let us take some table like VBAK. Let's take VBAK table. So we'll work on the standard table. Click display. Click on contents. And the number of entries we have in this table is about 15,333 records. 15,333 records we have in this table. So now, so I'm using VBAK table. We're using VBAK table. Table is VBAK. Now based on this table, we create data sources. Data source is also called as extractor. Based on this table, I create data source, which is an extractor. So this table is in S11. Data source I'm going to create using a T code RS02. What type of connection will we use in DXC? HTTP connection. So you have different connections, but the right answer is HTTP connection. And then also you have another question. We have another question on DXC. What are extractors? Extractors are data sources. Extractors can be standard. There are standard extractors that are provided by SAP. Also, you can create a tailor-made extractors. Tailor-made extractors are created using a T code RS02. Custom extractors or tailor-made extractors are created in the T code RS02. And these are also called as generic extractors. generic extractors, custom extractors, tailor-made extractors. So everything that you create in a T code RSO2. So I'll go back. So all the participants able to connect to ECC? Hope all the participants able to connect to ECC? Because I just got a message, some of the participants not able to connect to ECC. So until here everyone okay? Until now we are at the, we are seeing data from table called VBAK. So once this is done, what is the next step? Next step is to create data source in RSO2. So let us go back to a transaction code, create session, click on create session and enter the T code RSO2 and click enter. So provide ZVBAK. I'm giving the data source name as ZVBAK and click create. Provide the application component. Provide the application component is SD. Or if you click on this, open value help dialog. Expand SAP R by 3. So here you have SD. Double click on SD. Provide the short description, medium description, long description, and provide the table name VBAK. So you can use any application. We can use any application, but because I'm using SD related tables, that's why I'm doing it as SD, but you can use any tables over here. We can use any application. Click on save. So what am I creating now? I'm creating a data source for transaction data. VBAK holds sale order. It holds this. It holds the sale order details. And this table is a transaction table. That's why I'm creating a transaction data source. Click on local object. Click on local object again. And click save. So once you click save, data source has been saved successfully. Data source has been saved successfully. What is the next step? Once you create data source, next step is to replicate the data source from ECC to BW. So we have data source in ECC. Now the next step is to replicate this to BW system. Do you see in this diagram? Data source is created where ECC. What is the name of data source? This is the name of data source. So this is the data source name. Where we have to take this data source? Where did you create this data source? On ECC. Until now we are on the ECC system. We're still on the ECC. Now where do we have to take this data source to BW? How do you take this data source to BW? First you need to have RFC connection. So this is BW. So first we need to have RFC. Link ECC to BW using RFC. So once you have this connection, now you need to get this data source to BW. How do you get? Log into BW, log into the BW system, enter the T code RSDS. Once you enter the T code RSDS, replicate this data source, which is ZVBAK, from ECC to BW system. Replicate this data source from ECC to BW system. So let us do this step now. So let us log into BW. So I'm just wanted to going very slow today. So where is BW? BW is inside ECC itself. TC. This is called as embedded BW. So click on systems, click on status. Click on system, click on status. Click on this icon, component information. And then here you can see there's a component called SAP BW. 740 service pack 9. So BW is inside ECC. So that's why it is called as embedded BW. So let us go to a T code called RSA1 to check whether BW is there or not. An important transaction code to check whether BW is there or not. Enter the T code RSA1 and click enter. So if you can see data warehousing workbench modeling, then BW is there. So once you enter the T code RSA1, means BW is there. Now in the RSA1, what you can check here is the RFC, remote function call. So just right click on this system, right click on this, and here if you want you can check whether there is an already connection to ECC or not. So click check. Once you check, you need to get source system connection T90 CLNT090 is okay. So if you get source system connection T90 CLNT090 okay, means both ECC and BW are able to communicate to each other. So there is an RFC here. So you have RFC to BW and ECC. The connection is established. The connection is already there. Now once you have this connection, what next? RSDS. We need to go to a T code called RSDS. So let us enter the T code RSDS. So click on create session. Create session, enter the T code RSDS and click enter. So what do we have? Data source. What is the name of data source? ZVBAK. ZVBAK is the name of data source. What is the source system? What is the source? ECC. What is the name for ECC source system? T90 CLNT090. So click on this and search for the source system. So where is the source system? T90 CLNT090 is the name of the source system. Double click on this. So you have the data source and you have the source system. Click on data source and click replicate data source. So once you click replicate data source and click continue. So once you click continue, so here you have the data source ZVBAK. You're creating this data source and click continue. Data source ZVBAK is replicated. So now data source VBAK that you have in ECC, now it is available in BW. How do you know it is there in BW? Please see here. Here we can see a message. Data source ZVBAK replicated. Means it is there on BW system. So once it is replicated to BW, what is the next thing? Click on change. Change data source. What is the next step we need to do? Based on the configuration. Now where is this configuration? The configuration is in a table called RSAdmin. If you go to SE11, in SE11, you have an important table called RSAdmin. If you go to this table called RSAdmin and click display and click contents and click execute. So here you have, what is this? A DXC schema. So inside a schema called DXC schema, inside the schema, DXC related in-memory DSO get generated. So let us find out the schema, whether we have in SAP HANA. Let us go back to SAP HANA system. Let us expand the EDB, expand the catalog, go to DXC schema, which is already there, which is already configured by DXC. Expand the schema. So what should you have now? ZVBAK related tables. Right click on tables, click on filters, enter the table name ZVBAK, click OK, expand the tables. Now here we should be able to see these 5 tables: 00, 40, 70, 80, AO. But these tables have data or not? They don't have. How do you know whether they have or not? Right click on this table, click open data preview. It's empty. It is only a container, there is no content. It's only a container with no content. Now how can you get content to so here this is the data source. So we need to create info package on this data source. To create info package, we need to go to a T code called RSA1. Click on create session. Click on create session. Go to the T code RSA1. Click enter. Go to the source systems. Double click on the source system. Double click on the source system. Select the application component. Click find. Find for the data source ZVBAK. Find for the data source ZVBAK and click search. Once you click search, here we have a data source called ZVBAK. Double click on this data source. The data source is active. So the data source is already active. So right click on the data source, click on create info package, click on create info package. Provide the description and click save. Provide the description, click save. Once you click save, click schedule, click on the schedule tab. So what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to execute the info package. Why are we executing info package? Because I would like to transfer data from ECC table, which is VBAK, using HTTP connection to SAP HANA tables. So once I click on start, using an RFC, goes to the base table, picks the data, using HTTP connection, transfers the data to 00 table. So let us click start. So this is all happen internally. So we cannot see this. Only we can see start and we can see end. So once you click start, so here you see there's a message called data was requested. So once the data was requested, so let us go back. And now let us refresh over here. Just I basically click on start. Click refresh over here. So once you refresh, now please see, data is finally available. So once the data is available, just click on analysis. Click on analysis. Drag and drop VBLN sales document header. Sales document. It is sales document ID and NETWR. Net value of the sales document. So here we can see data for net value of the sales document and NEWR, sale order ID with net value of sales document. So let me once again repeat the same exercise. So just try to repeat the entire exercise once again. So what did we do today? We started with DXC. DXC stands for direct extractor connection. So using DXC, using the extractors can be standard extractors, they can be custom extractors. These extractors are called data sources, are replicated to BW. Activate data sources. In-memory DSOs are created. In order to populate data into in-memory DSO, create info package on data source. Info packages are used to transfer data to SAP HANA using HTTP connection. So once you execute info package, data transfers to SAP HANA. Now here, HANA is a standalone system. HANA is basically a standalone. but still we are able to transfer data to HANA via web applications. Now the data transfer takes place using a HTTP connection. A HTTP connection is transferring data via web from an ABAP-based system to a HANA system. So everyone able to follow this exercise? Probably there are a lot of new terminology, but if you see, the basic idea of this exercise is for customers who already have BW, if they want to use HANA, they can install HANA and instantly they can get access to SAP HANA without any know-how, just by creating one simple HTTP connection. Immediately, the application data, very rich application data that is on ECC, you can have it on HANA and start building applications in SAP HANA. Thank you all the participants to attend today's session. I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.